So what's this area?
This is our processing station. So we've brought the ashes over, or the cremains over. We then take out the nameplate, we attach that, so there's no confusion, and then we process the cremains. So the first thing we do is we tip the cremains onto this sorting table, and when they're poured onto the sorting table, they look a little bit like this. Now don't get offended, this is not human cremains. This is actually Sean. Sean was the sheep that we cremated when we first had to test the machine. The health department come in, the air discharge monitors guys come in, and we have to cremate a sheep. Sounds weird, but a sheep is very oily and produces a lot of smoke. And the idea behind that is that we can control that smoke. So this is the cremains of Sean. And you can see cremains, if you look closely, they're quite sort of honeycombish. And the reason they're honeycombish is because during the cremation process, it takes out all the carbon and it leaves behind what was basically bone, but not even bone, because your bones don't look like that. It actually is leaving the elements of your bones, so the zinc and the calcium and the magnesium and all those sorts of things. So we put the cremains onto the table. We then run a magnet over the top, pick up all the metal bits, screws, staples, that sort of small items, you know, these sorts of things. It's just a staple that was obviously as part of the casket. And sometimes you might have people that have hips or metal bits. Here's a pin from someone's leg. They've given us permission to dispose of that. We have to get their permission. So they go off to a specialist metallist recycler. Now, the reason we have to send those to a specialist metal recycler is because a lot of them are made of titanium. Titanium is a product we're not allowed to dispose of. It has to be recycled, not in its form as it is, but just back into titanium that can be used for other pins and plates and so forth. They get rid of all the other metal and at the same time by melting that down and recycling. It's a very clean process. So once the metal's out, we put it into this bucket. We then shake the bucket. And then we remove the bucket and we pour them into a paper bag. I'll show you how we do that. We then label the paper bag, goes inside a calico drawstring bag and into a cardboard box. Each of those has a label. So that's labelled, that's labelled, that's labelled. And the last thing we do is we take our sample nameplate and that goes in the box too. So there's 4 checks that it is the right lot of ashes. And once they're shaken, they don't look like that anymore. They look like your traditional white ash.
You mentioned disposing of hips and other parts. What about the screws and the staples and even jewellery that might find its way in there?
Yeah, so the metal recycler takes all the metal parts and separates everything out. But jewellery is a really important one. People often say, I want mum's wedding ring to stay on, and then you must collect all the gold up at the end. Gold just melts and becomes part of the crematorium brickwork. You cannot see it. Very soft metal. Diamonds are the opposite. Diamonds will survive, but I've not yet cremated a diamond. We try and encourage people to keep those. If they want them to go with the ashes, what we often say is take them off before cremation, do the cremation process with the ashes, and then maybe put the jewellery back in the ashes if you're going to bury them or keep them, so that the jewellery's still intact.
What can people do with the ashes afterwards?
What can people do with ashes afterwards? Scattering is the most common one, and I'll perhaps talk about scattering of ashes in the next video.